The family of 12-year-old Immani Hughes is pleading for information after the little girl disappeared from her home in Missouri City. Immani is at the center of an Amber Alert and has not been seen in more than a week.
Now, investigators say she may have used the social media app called Tagged to meet someone, and they think she may be a trafficking victim. So joining us this morning to tell us more about these concerns is No Trafficking Zone President Jacqueline Alludo. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. We've got a lot of questions about this that I think you'll be able to answer. But first, what is No Trafficking Zone? I've not heard of your organization.
Sure. So No Trafficking Zone is an organization where we specialize in disrupting and dismantling human trafficking. We work along law enforcement and federal agents to really help build cases, but make sure that victims' rights are being met. We also break down human trafficking and create zones. NRG Park became the first no trafficking zone back in 2020, and we have 3 bills that passed. The No Trafficking Zone School Act, which makes it a specialized felony, 25 to 99 years if you traffic a child in school. And we did it for universities and foster care and homeless youth facilities.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. Yeah. And so these zones, I mean, are you like monitoring these zones? What does that mean?
So human trafficking is like any other business. It has markets. It's a $245 billion illicit business. It brings in more money than all the football stadium teams combined. And so when you break down those markets, we wanted to break down those markets into zones, specifically where we knew that children were the most vulnerable.
Wow.
So we assess those areas, and then we create zones where we're passing legislation. So we're not a check the box organization, we're the create the box organization, understanding that when kids are going missing, when kids are being trafficked, why? And so example is with the schools, we knew that over 55% of survivors in Texas had done a survey saying that they were first groomed, lured, approached either on their school campus or connected to their schools, whether it was a school function,
extracurricular activities,
or a former student. And so the risk was very low for predators and traffickers. So we wanted to make it a high risk crime. And so the zones for the schools were 25 to 99 years felony. So to deter trafficking, and that also included the digital imprint, which if you pick up a child with Uber, Lyft, if you're trying to groom them through social media platforms.
And it covers that, which is really interesting because when we hear about all these situations on social media, we hear these stories about I was being followed in Target and this and that, and then you're not even thinking about my child going to school and being at risk for human trafficking, per se. So let's talk a little bit about Immani, if we can.
Yeah, are you involved with that case? Do you have more details about her case?
So I just did some research, so I don't know as much yet. I hope that her mom is speaking with an advocacy agency so that she can also get help herself because she's traumatized, when a child goes missing. But what I have researched and heard is that there's a high possibility that she is connected to the dating app Tag, which is more a poor person's Tinder. Kids go on there a lot to hook up, even though it's supposed to be an age verification. I also heard that she was a runaway prior. And so that sometimes
already put her at risk.
Yeah. It also sometimes intersects with trafficking victims. They'll a lot of times run back to their trafficker.
Really interesting because there's so many pieces there that tie that to this case, because we know that she was missing for a week when she got into this pickup truck outside of her home before police issued the Amber Alert. And we know in the news, I mean, a lot of times there has to be specific conditions to release an Amber Alert, but you're thinking she's 12. Like there needs to be more attention, and it puts that stigma when children do run away. And then the next time something happens, it's like, well, she wanted to leave. She's probably with this. She's probably with that. I mean, does that play a big role in a sort of a breakdown in being able to investigate some of these crimes quickly?
It does. There's a few things that are factors. The parents have to sign a missing persons report. Also, there are so many kids that are going missing in our nation that a lot of times law enforcement is overwhelmed, which means that we need to put more focus on these special units for missing children, human trafficking, ICAC, because these are the specialty units that are going to go out, work with Amber Alerts to make sure they are created, and work with finding your child. I would be asking the question, where was she the week before? Did she get a new friend? Did she have a cell phone? If she didn't have a cell phone and they found one on her, that would be a big indicator for trafficking, is that your pimps and predators give you a phone to communicate on that your parents don't know about,
right?
So that they can keep in touch with you and track you.
Yeah, so I like that. So if they show up with something that you know you didn't provide for them, what are some other signs that a child's being groomed?
So besides like digital devices, hair, nails, where's your child being able to afford all of this stuff? Purses, branding, is there any marking? Is there any branding on them? Are they isolated? Have they become withdrawn? Have they totally, completely changed all of their interests? You know, if they once loved swimming or tennis and all of a sudden they don't like that, completely changing their friends, lying to your parents, sneaking around. You know, a predator's job is to isolate. And so all of these signs play a big factor. What we like to tell parents is you have to have uncomfortable conversations with your children now, because the average child in America is watching pornography at 8 years old.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, parents, hope you're listening. I had not heard of the app Tagged, but a lot of times you get a little overwhelmed with what your kids are doing on their devices and think that they're just communicating with their friends and playing video games. But I mean, this is something, obviously, apps, ways they may be communicating with other people to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, it's very alarming. I mean, we were just in DC and there was a hearing about, you know, sextortion, you know, what's happening, especially with boys online at these games, getting blackmailed. That is under human trafficking. That's commercial sexual exploitation. But we need to educate parents on what exactly is commercial sex trafficking in the United States for our children. Like, what does that look like? How sinister it is, because for the most part, kids don't know that they're getting groomed.
Yeah.
And so if your child doesn't know that they're getting groomed, but you see these behaviors and you're talking with your child and you're saying, this is how a predator is going to approach you, this is how a predator is going to groom you, then children can start identifying and recognizing with, I think I'm being groomed.
Right.
Something feels uncomfortable. Yeah, because they're not just going to come and take you. That's not really what's going to happen anymore. They start online.
Yeah, they either start online or, like with the schools, it's another child recruiting another child. It's who you trust. My job is to learn your vulnerabilities. I'm a predator. I'm going to learn them, and I'm going to bond you to me. I'm going to trauma bond you, and I'm going to make your identity almost me, so that you're going to do everything I say. And I'm going to layer that with shame and guilt. And so part of our training is with parents, because, you know, I'm a parent. And so if my daughter was 12 and she had been running away and I had known that she was with boys, I don't know if it's in this situation, but in other trafficking cases that we work on, you know, a parent's natural reaction is like, what are you doing? I didn't raise you like this. What's happening? Like, who are you? But what parents don't understand is your child's already feeling shame. They've already done things. They're already traumatized. They've been bought and sold. They've been trafficked. They're probably being blackmailed. There's all of these things. And so what it does is it basically shames them even more, and they run. They become frequent runners. And I like to give the analogy of when soldiers go off to war, you know, they go off and they're excited. And when they come back, you know, families are excited, dinners are had, and you know, they'll say like, hey, Johnny, you know, you're not the same. What happened? And Johnny's thinking, I wish I could be that person. I wish I could be that person before I saw him did these things. The same kind of complex trauma is for kids.
Yeah.
And so when parents do that, it's reminding their child like what they're never going to be again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and really interesting talking about parents needing to know sort of what commercial human trafficking in the United States looks like, because you know, you're thinking, oh, my child snuck out, this incident happened, we got them back home, like maybe they ran away, and then could be this sort of mentality in your kid's head that they think they want to go back.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you know, commercial sexual exploitation with, you know, youth, it is really tricky, because it's not just about wanting to go back, it's you're trauma bonded to your trafficker. even
them.
your network, you know, a lot of times the girls will call them the stables. It's like a group of people that you become trauma bonded to. They are now a part of your identity. They've also blackmailed you, let you know where your family lives, that they know where your family lives. This is such an intricate crime. On top of it being a mental abduction.
Yeah.
And so kids, our brains don't develop until we're 25.
Right.
So imagine being 12 and already being bought and sold and trafficked. And the entry age, the average entry age is really 12 to 14, where kids are being recruited. So imagine being trafficked, but being trauma bonded to your predator.
Yeah.
And then going home and feeling shame and not having your family or people understand, which is really why victim services, we have to do a better job at figuring out how do we advocate for and provide counseling for trafficking victims.
Well, Jacqueline, we are running out of time, so I just want you to have time to touch on when big events come to town. That makes our kids even at more risk. And then, you know, right now we've got the rodeo underway. So is there anything that you want parents to know about taking any precautions if you're taking your kids out to the rodeo?
Yeah, so with big events, there is a lot of trafficking, just because as the demand rises, you know, there's more people coming into town, there's more people in these areas. As demands rise, you'll need supply. And so what we tell parents is, you know, monitor your children. Don't leave your children alone at these events. Spring break's coming up. You know, a lot of times you see that they leave their kids alone. If they are leaving their kids alone, put Bark 360 on their phones. Make sure you know who they are going with, who they are talking to. If you see grooming signs of an extra phone or other things, make sure that you're on top of it and you're really talking with your kids and let your kids know that whatever happens, it's okay as long as they come to you.
Yeah. All
Wow.
right. Jacqueline,
Fascinating
Alludo,
information.
Thank you so much for joining us this
Yeah,
morning.
we
It was
really
very
appreciate
good.
it.